Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jared Moon here with Ashley Hicks. How's it going, Ashley?
Going great.
And we got Joe Courtney.
As always.
With a confused look. How's life, Joe? That's me throwing it right to you for updates. I'll do my announcements at the end.
Yeah, it's all right, I guess. I can't do much. I'm working with what I got.
You sound
not
sad.
Only. Well, it's been raining like almost more often than it hasn't been in San Diego, so I can't even use my outdoor gym. So basically, I am grounded to indoor, which means the bike, because I can't row either because of my hamstring. So yeah, and even I've discovered a potential foot injury that I don't even know if I'm going to get checked out. It's just the muscles on top of my foot near my ankle on my hamstring side, my bad hamstring side, are completely like strained and painful to the touch. So I'm just like, all right, broken.
It's on the same bad leg though.
Same bad leg, but it's on the front of the foot. And and when I go into like plantar flexion, it's like super stretched and like kind of hurts, and it even like kind of hurts to touch. I can still do things fine, but like if I bike for too long, I can feel it.
That's what had me finally go to the physical therapist earlier this year. Was, I've mentioned kind of that I had some knee issues, but it was like my foot started hurting really bad and my knee was hurting. Like it was just getting, and it was getting worse, not better. And I was like, okay, but it was all connected, because my knee was slightly tender. So when I would run, I would take like weird steps unknowingly, and that eventually injured my foot and then fixed all that. But so my update is the opposite of yours. I'm just going to jump into it because it's like a good segue. Is I feel like I'm like 110% right now. Like I just feel
someone's got to be thriving.
I feel awesome.
I will suffer so you can fly.
I only give that update because of your brokenness, but I feel great, man. My knee is 100%. I'm running fast again.
Rub it in.
It's just great. Like I'm doing really well. So I just wanted to let everybody know that. And then my other update is I'm just really fired up for the next cycle. Started writing most of the programming, and I'm always excited when I'm writing new programming. I'll be going Endure next 12 weeks. What are you guys going to do?
I'm on that spin track.
Go on shred. VD, you better give me something good, bro.
Yeah. No, are you seriously going to spin for 12 weeks?
Well, no, I'm going to spin until I can run. So I'm going to start doing, since I'm already going to PT for stuff, they're just like, yeah, we'll just add the hamstring on to, because they actually said that if I don't get it treated properly, it won't heal properly. I've never had a torn hamstring, but I know they're very temperamental.
Yeah, and don't sprint ever again.
Yeah, well, yeah, which sucks because I'm supposed to be playing lacrosse in like 5 weeks, but yeah.
Probably wouldn't do that. That's just...
Yeah.
All right, Ashley, updates from you. How's life? How are things going?
It could be better, but it's okay. Still living in a renovation. Said I would never live in a renovating house. How do you say that? I don't even know.
Space that is being renovated?
A space that is that is so much better, Jared Moon. Why didn't I go with that? Yeah. So it's
Brain's
starting.
Not working properly.
Brain is not. I have no structure. I haven't worked out since our Spartan race. Yeah. So if you're listening to this podcast, feel bad for me.
Well, I do. Well, I've done a lot of DIY projects. We have some rental properties, and I've lived in some older homes that just straight up require that. And doing one project at a time is stressful enough. Like I've had to do kitchen work before, and if you don't get the kitchen work done like right away, that can really disrupt a family. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you don't have an operational sink or a dishwasher, that can become problematic really fast. And I'm not saying that's what you have. I'm just saying like it's it's funny how the small things can just throw your entire world out of whack really fast.
Yeah, it makes you try now to remember not to take the little things for granted. So we do have a functioning kitchen because that would drive me crazy. That's the biggest thing, and I can shower. So we're good. We're good there.
I don't see what
I'm
the
good.
issue is.
I'm just complaining.
If you can like we were talking about before, just wipe off enough space anywhere in the house to throw a laptop down, you should be fine. That's
right.
How
I'm on the dining room table right now, so we're good to go.
All right. Well, let's the announcements sponsored by broccoli and blueberry combo, maybe. Maybe. I mean, I'm still hitting like 200 grams of blueberries a day. So
oh my goodness,
it's a lot of blueberries. So I'll go with blueberries and AMAs. So AMAs have they dramatically went up. Like there are a lot of them now. We had there's just a lot of AMA questions, which is awesome. So I'm getting to those. Joe and I have been working on them, and just so everybody knows, they're going to be published YouTube and podcast. We have a lot of new announcements coming that way. But if you guys want to submit anything AMA for just a quick asking a question about a specific topic, or maybe you want us to cover a study or idea, go to garagegymathlete.com/AMA. You can do that. And then also killingcomfort.com. The book is done. I've already mentioned that, but still going to wait a while. Probably be the first or second quarter of next year. Probably first, because I just like to get things out of the way. First quarter of next year should be shipping to everywhere in the world except for China. So I'm kidding. It probably can go to China. I don't think I've ever actually shipped a book to China. So anyway, those are my announcements. We can get into the study. So we're going to be covering HRV. The actual study name is Heart Rate Variability, Neuromuscular and Perceptual Recovery Following Resistance Training by Flat, 2019. Okay, so it's a super simple study. I'm going to quickly brief what happened. Then you guys can say anything you want about it. I don't have whatever you want to say, just say it. So they wanted to take a look at HRV in relation to not necessarily lifting, not, hey, how does it correlate to lifting? But they really wanted to see how it correlated to other recovery metrics. So they looked at a lot of other recovery metrics, like a vertical jump, some objective, some subjective, and they just wanted to see if HRV correlated to any of those. And so what they did, they took 10 dudes, straight up dudes, with at least 1 year of training experience. All subjects played rugby in the surrounding area of Savannah, Georgia. And what they had them do, they did baseline HRV, they had them lay down, standing HRV, a bunch of different stuff. They did 10 rep max testing on the squat, bench press, and lat pull down. And then they had 3 additional visits where they come in the lab after that, where they would check out the velocity of their lifts, the vertical jump, like I mentioned, and then also 10 rep max. They would also measure HRV, and then they did that consistently across all the visits to find out if there's any significance in HRV data compared to, like I said, other recovery metrics that already have a lot of data and research for behind them. And drum roll, they basically found there is no correlation between HRV and other recovery metrics. I have to make that very clear, and we're going to talk about it more. But I will just go to Joe first. I mean, anything, man. Thoughts, ideas, questions, comments, concerns. Can I say anything else about HRV or this study?
Yeah, I was definitely confused at first because I was expecting an actual experimental study, and I don't think I was overthinking it, but they're just trying to see how HRV relates to things. And it just makes me think that a lot of people really don't understand how HRV works or how it affects them. And to me, this, I guess they could have also been looking at it wrong. To me, is that because it's a very short-sighted study. It was very small, within a week, versus I think heart rate variability is more of a long-term thing.
Yeah.
And I only say that because, I mean, we have Whoop data from 18 plus months of wearing it, of looking at it every single day to actually understand how it works. So I'm not by no means a expert on HRV, but I think I have a pretty decent grasp of it and how it actually, and how you can use it.
Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, when anything rushes onto the scene, which I feel like HRV did, just because it became a lot easier. It's kind of like the Human Genome Project. They finished that several years ago, and now you can go to whatever website and spit in a cup or whatever. I've never actually done it, and then you send it off to these companies, and they're like, "Oh, you have genetic predisposition for power exercise, and you might also get Alzheimer's." Like, you know what I mean? Like they have all these studies. It's the same with HRV. It became very easy for the average Joe, no pun intended, to measure HRV. And now I think a lot of people are trying to combat, like, hey, is it even worth measuring? Should we measure it? Does it help with anything at all? So, Ashley, what are your thoughts on the study?
I agree with Joe. Like, I thought it was going to be more. So when I read it and I was like, okay, copy, HRV is not, doesn't really correlate with other measurements. And then just always with studies, I always find things that are like little things that are interesting. So they measured their HRV standing up and lying on their back. And I thought that was interesting. I was like, would that affect you at all? I mean, and it would have, and then that's the other thing, right, with HRV. So you guys have done this, gosh, how many times? Multiple times. And I've, in Slack chat, because I don't really keep up with my HRV. I'm just going to say that out loud. But you guys always talk about same time of day, right? Mm-hmm. Isn't that important? And I didn't really see that. Like, did they always do it in the morning? Did they always do it in the evening?
I think there was a 2-hour window.
There was a 2-hour window. I didn't see that. But
yeah, and that's a big thing with HRV is consistency and measurement. But I really feel like, so everyone listening, you guys already know what happened. Like, they weren't trying to prove if HRV correlates, because it's just lifting. There was nothing else. There's no conditioning, endurance, anything like that. So they weren't trying to say, hey, does HRV correlate to whether or not you're ready to perform lifting? They're just like, hey, does it correlate to other recovery metrics that we are already aware of that have some efficacy or are proven? And they're saying, no, not really. There was some significance, but not anything major. And that can be like that could start leading people down the wrong path, thinking that HRV is not something worth tracking. But I think I have to shift to anecdotally here. I've been tracking HRV for a long time, and what I feel like whoever did the study wanted to cover HRV, but they weren't a coach, or I feel like they had a very poor understanding of how you should test somebody. Because if you were to tell me, hey, I want to test someone's HRV, I'm going to have them do 3 lifts, and it's going to be 10 rep max, and then I'm going to send them home, and I'm going to come back. I would have told you that's not near enough stress or volume to affect HRV. I could have told you that right off the bat. I'd been like, it's not enough. Because I know for a fact that anytime I personally go just do a lifting session, it has very little correlation to my HRV. HRV is way more correlative to overall strain on the body. And one thing I've also noticed is if I'm significantly stressed out, I notice that my HRV is lower, and then I talked to you guys before the podcast. Emily happened to be wearing her Apple Watch. She wasn't tracking any of this for fun. She just happened to be wearing her Apple Watch when she gave birth to our third, Eleanor, and her HRV was like 4 the day after, like the day of, because of how stressful that is on the body. That's a stressful event, both mentally and physically. And that suppressed her HRV. Joe, you've seen it. I've seen it. Drinking alcohol, absolutely, 100%, every single time, will suppress our HRV. So it's indicative of stress on the body. And I don't think, cardiologists use HRV as a metric. So the fact that it's coming to the fitness world is just like, hey, how can we use it? It's not whether or not it can actually be used, because it is used in the medical world already. So I think there are a lot of things that you have to take into account. The biggest one being your overall lifestyle parameters and how stressed you are and all these other things. But you can do that. Most people are self-aware enough to be like, I'm a level 4 stress out of 5, or at least maybe you could do the 1 to 2 scale. I'm not stressed. I am stressed, right? Joe, what's your experience been with HRV?
So I don't know if you want me to explain how I use it, or
should I explain HRV real quick? We've mentioned it 1,000 times without mentioning what it is. So HRV is heart rate variability and is the variation between heartbeats, normally measured in milliseconds. So if your heart does not beat in consistent intervals, it beats in inconsistent intervals. The more consistent your heart beats, the more consistent those intervals, the worse your HRV is going to be. You want a higher heart rate variability. So it's different than resting heart rate. Resting heart rate, you want a low resting heart rate variability. You want a high HRV for the most part. And so that's the variation in heartbeats measured in milliseconds. Okay. Now, wherever you want to go with HRV, I don't know, personal things you've noticed having done 18 months of Whoop data. You don't really do it with a Garmin anymore. But what are some things you notice in tracking HRV, both training and anything else that you encountered?
So for me, HRV does not affect performance. It's something that I would look at in the morning and go and think about, like, okay, that's what that means, but it's not going to affect performance. And one thing that the study did was test and retest a vertical jump, but it doesn't. And aside from a torn hamstring, if I did a vertical jump every day, no matter how sore I was, I'd probably be close to the same. No matter what my HRV was. How I use and interpret heart rate variability is, think of like a teacher grading a score of your recovery from the day before. So really it's the day before, and it's on a scale from like 0 to 170. I don't even know how high our HRV goes.
Highest I've seen is in the 200s.
Okay. So the higher the better. And I take that score and think of, okay, if I'm really low, then I need to put more effort into any of my recovery that I might do. So that's hydration, that's food, that's stretching, anything like that to improve my recovery score to then perform better in the long run. It's not a short-sighted, if it's high now, then I can go run faster.
Yeah, so that 100%. You can't wake up, and Ashley's has strong opinions about that as well. Like, I'm not going to let a recovery score dictate what I do today. And I agree with that, because I've talked about it on podcasts before where I've had low HRV and I've PR'd that day. It's not that indicative. And something I always talk about when we're talking about data or HRV is it's trending over time. If I notice that I had a 30% decrease for four months straight, like if I were to map it out over, say, 2 years, and over the last 4 months, my HRV has been 30% lower than normal, that's enough data for me to look at and take a step back and be like, what's going on? Am I more stressed out than normal? Has my environment changed? What's going on right now? And I think looking at data for the long term is what you have to do with these metrics. You can't look at HRV for 5 days and come to any sort of conclusion. So I think the study's trash. I'll just go ahead and say that. I don't think you can really pull anything from this study. So it's not super indicative of other metrics, recovery metrics. Yeah, but like you tracked over a couple days, like I don't think that's useful information at all. I feel like what they did from a programming standpoint, I feel like they should have done way more volume. They should have done more testing. They should have had some conditioning or aerobic endurance in there, because I think HRV is way more sensitive to aerobic conditioning specifically. And I also think that they should, you need way more time. You need a long timeline to, I think, make any justification or statement about biomarkers, right? Like if I were to take your resting heart rate today and then in 3 days, we'll see, he did his spin bike 3 days in a row and his resting heart rate is no different. It's like, that's not how fitness works. Like you don't do something for 3 days and expect to see a change. And that's what a lot of the world wants, but that's not what actually happened. So I think the study was trash, and I don't normally say that, but something can be published in scientific and still be trash because they don't understand the practical application of what they're testing. They're not athletes or they're not coaches. There's something that's missing sometimes.
Whoop probably has like a sea full of data to just put that to rest too, and to help any further studies.
Yeah, but no one will ever listen to Whoop because they sell something, right? And we've kind of talked about this before, is like, no matter how noble somebody's intentions are, even if they were donating 100% of their profits to charity, people would still be like, yeah, well, they're selling something, blah. There's no way if someone's taking money for something, no one will fully trust a company for the most part. So that's very difficult. But yeah, I think things that Whoop published their own internal study about alcohol and how it takes 4 days to recover from a full 4 days to be 100% back to normal on HRV. And they didn't control for that in this study. Those guys go home, these 10 rugby players, okay? Let's just talk about that for a second. Rugby players. I knew a lot of rugby players in college. They drank more than anyone I know on the planet Earth. And so their HRV could be trash on one day and not another because of their alcohol intake or the fact that they didn't sleep. So that's why I think this study is trash and should be completely disregarded if you're looking at HRV. There we go.
That was easy.
Does anybody disagree with me? It's fine if you do. I think you don't even like HRV at all anyway, Ashley. So
I think it's good to, I don't know. I personally don't track it, but that doesn't mean that I don't think it's good.
You do kind of track it because you wear an Apple Watch.
You're right. Okay, I do wear an Apple Watch, but I don't go and look at my HRV every morning and see how it is. And I don't actually wear my Apple Watch when I sleep too. So, because I feel like HRV, that's the thing with the Whoop, right? So you guys track, your sleep, your deep sleep, your all of that, and that accounts into your HRV, right? Am I correct in saying this?
So they give you a recovery score that measures off of three things. It's your sleep, your resting heart rate, and HRV. And then they give you a recovery score based off of those three things. But it does measure HRV while you're sleeping.
Yeah. So,
but neither one of us wear a Whoop anymore, just for clarification.
Correct.
Yeah.
Nobody's wearing a Whoop. But I think it's good if it's going to, like, if you're, again, tracking over a long period of time. And, I jokingly give this stuff kind of crap because I'm like, oh, well, this is just another, thing to make normal people purchase something and they can, make a profit out of it. But if it's making people aware of, again, what you said, Jared, like if a couple months go by and your HRV is just tanking or something's going on, then if it's making them aware of something that they would have never known before, or, Joe talked about your nutrition, talked about your sleep. And then you're like, okay, maybe I need to check my sleep, check my nutrition. And this score of, your HRV or whatever it is makes you more aware of that and then makes you fix things, then I do think it can be a positive thing. So it's just something that I don't personally track or do.
On the performance side, I agree with you. I think most people's volume and intensity is not high enough to really pull any significant or meaningful data about your HRV or resting heart rate. I just don't think, and that's not taking a shot at anybody. Like I think most of my volume and intensity on any given day is not high enough for it to truly matter. I know in the endurance world, because I just know a lot of endurance athletes, like HRV is highly sensitive to your training volume. But I'm talking about people who are like training for, Ironman triathlons, who are running a lot, swimming a lot, biking a lot all the time, and they can kind of see these trends. So I do think that it's a heart measure. It's a measure of the heart. So I think more aerobic endurance would take precedence there and not necessarily lifting. And the other thing I would say is I also agree with your second point about like if it helps you with sleep, nutrition, or whatever, but I don't drink alcohol anymore. And it's pretty much because of resting heart rate and heart rate variability readings. Like I also feel worse than I have in the past, but like seeing my resting heart rate be 10 or 15 beats per minute higher and my HRV being crushed and then also feeling like crap the next day, I'm like, and that was like 2 beers. I'm like, yeah, maybe I should just stop doing this. It's not good for me. I don't feel good the next day. I'm a little foggy. Like I'll just quit. So it took a combination of all those things to be like, yeah, I'm done. So I don't use the Whoop anymore, but it basically made it to where I don't drink alcohol at all. So that's a win.
There you go. Positive.
All right. Well, we kind of keeping the topic in the same vein. We want to talk about data and tracking. So we kind of talked about heart rate variability just now. Like, yes, it can be useful for certain things, who it would and would not be. But let's just talk about tracking and data in general. Is there anything that you guys track? Workout journals, PRs, whatever, to other metrics that you do find helpful, something for garage gym athletes to be able to kind of take away, or maybe it's something they could adopt. I'll start with you, Ashley.
Yeah. So right now I'm in the beta testing with the Women's Health Track. So right now I'm tracking my nutrition with MyFitnessPal. So that's something that I use to track. But fitness journal specifically, I like to write down my workouts. I have it on Team Builder. We all do with all of our data, but I like to have it in a journal just in case of anything. / I like to go back and look and say, oh man, 3 years ago I couldn't do this, or basically my progression. Have I gotten better? Have I gotten worse? And I like the I don't know, it's something about writing things down that it also sticks with me as well. So I am old school like that, I guess, keeping a journal. But I also like to put like after a workout. So if it's something that's really spicy, I should actually take some photos and send it to you, Jared, because there's some times where I say, Jared Moon, this was not nice. Or I'll like write a frowny face, or I'll write a smiley face. Yeah. No, I keep it clean, but if there's, I know, oh, this is terrible. And it's normally like push-up days or arm days, anytime there's squats, there's always a happy face or a love leg day kind of face.
Oh, we know. You were asking during the Spartan race, where's the squat obstacle? Where can I do my back squats?
1 rep max back squat in the mud. Not dangerous at all.
Hey, if I could have taken off some miles to do a 1 rep max back squat, I would have done it in a heartbeat. But yeah, so I like to track that. And then I do keep up with my team builder when I'm working out. And I like to put the data in there as well. But other than that, and I use my Apple Watch more for a timer as well as just kind of keep up with what I'm doing throughout the day. I don't really pay attention to the, like some people's activity stuff. They're like, I have to have 700 calories for the day. Like I don't keep up with any of that. I just kind of track what I'm doing and use my Apple Watch for, music and seeing.
So you're not too concerned about closing your rings on the Apple Watch each day?
Correct.
Got it. Perfect. All right, that makes sense. Joe, what do you have? Anything that you use for tracking or something you follow to keep note of?
Not really. So with the Whoop for 18 months or however long, I got pretty good at knowing my recovery. So that's why I kind of stopped wearing that. I still do like to pay attention to it. And I think the most important recovery metric to me is resting heart rate, because that's how I actually know if I'm hurt or sick or didn't recover at all well, because I have a pretty good window of when I know that I'm fine. But as we all found out, everybody that did the Spartan race, we were all 15 to 20 beats higher, and that's like a 30 to 40% difference. And that to me is pretty significant. And like when I drink alcohol, I'm also a good 5 to 10 beats higher.
I'd say resting heart rate is way more consistent than HRV in those type of readings, like what you're saying.
Yeah. So if I'm 10 beats higher, I'll think about why I might be 10 beats higher. If it's alcohol, I might just push through and work out. But if it's like sickness or like injury or soreness, I might actually rest because of that, because I know that I'm not doing too well. So I'll just do some recovery stuff. So that's the main one that I actually pay attention to. But one of the reasons why I switched to the Garmin was instead of recovery metrics, because that's kind of where they lack, they do really good on performance metrics. So pacing, percentage of heart rate during workouts, and things like that. So that's something that I haven't really fully set down what I'm going to start tracking, but I can still go back and look, and I know kind of where I'm at during certain workouts and running. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
The pacing is right up your alley. But here's my question for you. So you said you track your resting heart rate, right?
Yeah.
So if you feel bad, let's say you feel bad, do you then go and look at it, and just because that number says, oh, it's higher than before, then do you choose not to work out? Or do you go just on like how your body feels overall that day?
Typically on my body feel, like if it all depends on what I've been doing, but typically on how my body feels. And then I'll go to it and be like, oh, that's why. Well, now I can justify my belly aching, but I'll probably still, do it.
Yeah.
Depends on what it is, though.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it might dictate my intensity level.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to go do Murph and I just felt like crap and all of my recovery metrics said the same, I'd be like, okay, well, today's no vest and we're just going to get it done versus a PR attempt, and that might be the only decision I would make, because as I mentioned earlier, it's always trending, because if I had a randomly high resting heart rate or low HRV, I mean, I have 3 kids. What if my body was fighting off a sickness? I never really end up getting sick, but like there's no doubt I come in contact with the same virus or bacteria or whatever they have, right? So it probably goes into my body. My body's like, oh, get rid of this, but it's hard for your body to do that, so it might just be like that. And then if everything's back to normal the next 2 or 3 days, then I'm fine. But if it's a trend over 3 or 4 days and I'm also feeling that way too, then I might start to be like, well, am I training too much? Am I not sleeping enough? But most of those things are just really dialed in for me right now. So I don't know what else I could fix. If my resting heart rate randomly got high and HRV was low, then I would just think I'm dying, because when I'm at home, like I'm sleeping as much as I should, I'm eating what I should, I'm drinking as much water as I should, like everything's pretty dialed in. So I wouldn't know what's going on. It'd be something bigger at that point.
Yeah, I just swap days sometimes. Go for a lower intensity day.
Yeah. What about you, Jared? What do you track? Like, do you keep a journal still? I know you used to like have your whiteboard journal.
So I do. I've gone back and forth on how I'm tracking things. Like, for sometimes it's like, okay, I'm just going to track everything in Team Builder, and then I do what you do, just not in a journal. I will write the workout on a whiteboard, because I really don't like touching my phone when I'm working out, and so I'll just have everything on the whiteboard, and then I can. What's awesome about Team Builder though is like the fact that it calculates like the percentages for you and stuff. You know, if you have the proper 1 rep maxes in there, then it'll list that out. So it's nice to look at Team Builder and write all those things down. I have a whiteboard in my garage, so I'll write it all down. Yeah, normally snap a picture. Another thing that I started doing, because I used to take all those pictures and put them in Evernote, and I kind of stopped doing that, but I started using a different app called Day One, is what it's called. And so Day One is like it's a dated journal app. And so I'll take, like, if I wrote it down on, it'll be the whiteboard if I'm in my garage. It'll be a 3x5 card if I'm not in my garage, if I'm like out traveling or whatever. I'll take a picture of it with all the results, you know, because maybe you're supposed to do 7 reps and I could only get 6 or whatever. I'll put those notes in there. And then I'll snap a picture of it and put it in the Day One for that day. And so then I can go back and look at multiple things. Because I'm wearing an Apple Watch right now, so if I wanted to go back to November 12th, I could pull up and see what my data was for that, like if it was running, like what my pace was. But then I can also look up and be like, what was the exact workout I was doing and my results? Because sometimes if it's not in Team Builder, then it's going to be in that app. And sometimes it's all just in Team Builder. So it's a little sporadic, but the main things that I do track are performance metrics. Like where's my Murph time headed? What is my mile time? You know, how fast can I ride my bike 15 miles? Those are the things that I'm way more concerned about, like, first and foremost, over anything else, over resting heart rate, HRV, because none of those things truly correlate to your performance. And that's taught in like every strength and conditioning textbook in the world, because if we wouldn't have the Olympics, if all we had to do was sit down and be like, okay, well, let's test everyone's VO2 max, let's test everyone's resting heart rate and heart rate variability, and then we're going to measure the size of your biceps and quads, and whoever, you know, has the best in all categories gets the gold medal. We don't do that. What we do is we see who can perform the best under pressure. Like, there's a lot of those things that factor in. I think that's what's most important, and that's kind of why I pay attention to those things, because you're not going to feel good every day, and so you need to learn to push through some things. And
especially if you're traveling, like, can you imagine if they were like, oh, my HRV's low today because I traveled to, you know, where's the next Olympics going to be at, you know?
Yeah.
And, yeah. And
if I was an Olympian, I wouldn't want any of that data anywhere close to the race, because, I mean, maybe in my training, but like anything that could mess with my mind going up to the biggest event of my entire life. And most Olympians only get one shot in Olympics. It's something like 97% or something of Olympians get one Olympics. Like, we hear about the Michael Phelps and these gymnasts who do 2, maybe 3. But that's 12 years. Most people can't maintain any sort of peak level. So yeah, I wouldn't want any of that data close to a performance event.
Yeah.
Just screw with your brain. Oh, anyway, so that's what performance first, then second I'll go to HRV, resting heart rate, because that stuff's just kind of interesting. But I always talk about like not having a data collection habit or hobby for the sake of just doing that. You know, we've talked about that on the podcast before. I think some people get wrapped around wanting to track a bunch of crap for no reason at all. Like, always know what you're going to do with your data if you're tracking it. And if you don't know what you're going to do with it, then don't track it. It's just a waste of your time. And there's some things that are really dumb. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's being marketed towards CrossFitters. It's like a shirt you put on or something like that, and it connects to your phone, and then it'll be like, oh, your power output for that workout was, 127 foot-pounds. And I'm like,
what?
And I saw some people like super fired up about that. They're like, this is so awesome. And I'm like,
why?
What are you going to try to produce more horsepower in your next workout? And the reason I think that that's dumb is because if you are doing a workout for time, whether that's CrossFit or running a mile, you are actually doing a real life physics experiment. You are seeing how much you are doing work. Like you are doing actual work that has a definition in physics. So, putting that over time and distance, and now you have your work is the time itself. So if like just in the CrossFit world, say Fran, if you can do Fran in 3 minutes versus 10 minutes, that's a big difference in what the equation would come out to be. So you're already doing that math just by moving weight over time. And so you don't need this like fancy equipment to tell you the same thing. It's the same with running. If you're like, I'm 185 pounds, if I can run a 5-minute mile, we could go over, do all the math for that and find out exactly how much power I'm putting out and all these, but it doesn't matter because it took 5,280 feet, 185 pound male, 5 minutes flat. Like that's all you need to know. And so you could get into the weeds of like, okay, well, if I was 205 pounds, I'm putting out more power. It's like, well, doesn't matter. Mile time's mile time. You know what I mean? So some of that stuff's just stupid to track, in my opinion.
It's just another whiteboard for people to have a leaderboard to look at and compare. And, oh, my shirt told me I'm better.
Yeah, and there's always a way to game those things. I've seen people sit there doing step competitions and just like moving their hand over and over to get steps on their wrist, right? It's funny stuff. And that's one thing I've never tracked and will never track are steps. I don't. All right, I'm getting off. No more ranting. Get into the HRV style. That study made me angry is what happened. It's because I was like...
It was weird and frustrating to how they went about it.
Well, I was first... So new studies are coming out all the time, and if people listening don't realize it, all these studies that we're giving you are new. We're not like... We've only covered one study that wasn't done in the last couple of months, and that was when we were talking about concurrent training because it's like one of the most referenced studies in the world in concurrent training. That's the only reason we did that. But most every other study is coming out 2019, came out 2018, something like that. And so we're really covering the leading edge here for scientific studies. And that one I was just like, what did you do wrong? Like, how did you miss... did you even know what HRV was before you started this study? Did someone put you up to it? Was it a dare? It was a dare. Like someone dared you to do it because it was such a bad study. Anyway, let's get into the workout. Condition me to the grave.
I was like, speaking of HRV.
This one will affect your HRV. Let's see. I think you guys have it pulled up? I have it pulled up.
I feel like you should know it by heart.
It like, you should know this
into your brain.
I have the non-scaled version memorized. I always forget the scaled version sometimes. So here it is. Condition me to the grave. You're going to do 100 calories on the rower, 100 calories on the airdyne, 100 double unders, run 1 mile. Then 75 of all 3 of those, run 1 mile. 50 calories of all those, run 1 mile. 25 of all those. And then the without machines version is 100 sumo deadlifts, 100 box step-ups total, 100 double unders, run 1 mile, and then drop down the same scheme. So 75, run 1 mile, 50, run 1 mile, 25, run 1 mile. And if you guys, that was confusing to hear, Google Condition Me to the Grave. There's no one else who's ever even tried to name and work out that, so you'll find us right away. And let's go. Tips, tricks, and strategies. Joe, I think we've talked about this workout before, but...
So the sumos you can do with kettlebell, not barbell, and they're fairly light too. That's always a question that people some people end up doing high pulls, but it's just regular sumo with a kettlebell. I don't know. There's not much. I mean, pacing. I don't know how to. Like, you have a pacing card if you really want to get under 60, but only like 10% of people can do that or something.
Yeah, that was gonna be my advice. Was make a pace card. I have a pace card. Maybe we can put it in the show notes that I keep. And hitting, because if you can just keep in the pacing, for some reason that really helped me. There was like a mental block with me being able to complete that the first couple times I did it. But once I had the pace card, I knew I was on track. Because it really feels like you're not on track because the workout is so front heavy. But it's very quick towards the end. Those 25 calories and like that's super fast. It's very, very, very short, but it's super front heavy. So I'd say make a pace card and a goal. And know that there's a gigantic difference between the scaled and not scaled version of these workouts. It takes doing it to figure it out. but it's a whole nother level of workout when you're not doing the substitutions. And I understand most people are just doing that out of necessity. They have the equipment or they don't. But if you ever get a chance, you have all of the machines and equipment in place, do it as prescribed and see how you like your life afterwards.
So we've actually been doing the hundreds in Hard to Kill and I think some other tracks. I can't remember which ones. So if you have been doing those and on the programming, then think of what that pace was for just the hundreds, because that was without the mile. And maybe, I don't want to say dial it back a little bit. You might need to dial it back a little bit so you don't hit a wall right away. Because I went at those hundreds fairly fast because I knew that's all I had to do. But then you got to think of, okay, you're doing that and then a mile and then coming back and doing 75 of that and then over and over.
Yeah, I think 75 is the worst of it, to me.
Yeah.
Probably because it's still a lot and you're still have a lot. I mean, even mentally, you're like, oh man, I still have a ton of this left to go.
The 50s are kind of bad too, but
and then 25.
The hundreds and the 25s are easy. Ashley, what do you have on this one?
Yeah, I would say if you're scaling it too, you talked about using a kettlebell, Joe. I remember that it says light on there, but I don't know. I wanted it to mimic as close to sucking as much on a rower as it could. So I remember I used a 53-pound kettlebell, which I liked a lot better than the 35, because if you do the hundreds on the 35, I feel like if you're doing it fast enough like you should be, you just blaze right through that. And then for the actual, if you're doing the actual prescribed written workout without the substitutions, then I would just say to like chug at it and it's more mental. I feel like this one too, just because of how long it is. And then didn't you put an hour time cap on this?
Yeah, it's got a 60-minute time cap.
Yeah. So if you're getting close to it, I don't know. I remember I was at the 50s when I did the actual, full up workout, and that really got to me. But you've got to kind of book it to finish the actual one. I always time cap when I do the full one. And then if I have to substitute anything, I can finish it. So that kind of shows you the difference between the substitutions as well as the machine, like how I think it's way more difficult to be able to do.
And I realized that after, I probably should have, when I was writing the substitutions, maybe doubled like the kettlebell deadlift or something like that. But I just didn't want to get too crazy on the volume piece for people finishing, because people would still finish it with 200 reps, but 200 and then 150. It's just a lot of repetitions. But that's what I realized when people are posting in the group their times for Condition Me to the Grave, and they're like, yeah, 38 minutes. And I'm like, what? I don't know if that's possible, but it's because they did the substitution version, and it's very possible when you're doing that. Yeah, crappy workout. Condition Me to the Grave, try it out, and have fun.
Yeah. Just grind through it.
Just grind. All right. So, Garage Gym Athlete. Why should people join? I have a good reason, but I want to see if you guys have a good reason.
Because of all the new content coming for everything.
Yes. Are you going to let the cat out of the bag? We have a cat inside of a bag right now.
Only you two know? Question mark?
No, you're just not maybe top of mind. There's just going to be a lot more content next year on a weekly basis.
Oh, yeah.
Cat's half out of the bag. Yeah, it's going to be cool. We have a lot of cool stuff coming up, and a lot of stuff for Garage Gym Athletes. Mine is we're starting a new cycle. So we have 2 weeks left this as of recording this. So during this recording, you'll have this week and then next week, and then we'll hit Fit Week, which is the last week of the year. Sorry that Fit Week came right at Christmas and New Year's time frame. That's tough if you are going to be hitting the holidays hard with the food and drink. But if you're not, then hit those PRs. But then we roll into a new cycle. So that's my why. Roll into a new cycle. I have some awesome things I'm going to implement that we've never done before. And so I'm really excited to get the new programming released in January.
That means pain. Gains, but
it's going to hurt.
The Endure track is going to be really painful. I know that for a fact. Hard to kill, moderately painful, but Endure might just be painful every day. But from an aerobic standpoint. So, all right. Joe, you're not getting off the hook. Wait, you got it.
He got it.
I said first. I jumped on that one.
That's too fast. I'm getting slow. All right, guys. That's all I got. Peace out. Thanks for listening to the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.